and Rob McGregor welcome you to a place where all kinds of phenomena flourish. Voices whisper ancient secrets, signs and symbols are abundant. UFOs, ETs, ghosts, and even the dead move about freely. Here we meet authors, researchers, and investigators of the mysterious, the strange, and of the inexplicable anomalies that surround us. Step out of the everyday world and take a journey into the mystical underground.
Okay, Rob, you want to start?
Okay, we're good to go. And 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Mystical Underground. Thank you for joining us. This is Rob McGregor.
And Trish McGregor.
And our producer and tech magician, John Posey, is with us. You can go to themysticalunderground.com where we make regular blog posts and where you can find out about our books. Among them are Phenomena, Harnessing Your Psychic Abilities, The Secrets of Spirit Communication, Sensing the Future, and Aliens in the Backyard. Our upcoming book is called The Shift, Reports from the Mystical Underground. Trish's new novel, White Crows, will be coming out this year, and I have been slowly releasing the audio edition of Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings. Trish.
Our guest today is Alex Marcoux. She writes visionary fiction and spiritual self-help books. She was welcomed into a world few people see, the sacred mysteries and magic of autism. When asked by 3 nonverbal autists to make known their truth, The Unsuspected Heroes, the first book of a Journey to the New Earth book series, emerges. Her newest book is Destination New Earth, a blueprint to 5D consciousness. Welcome, Alex.
Welcome, Alex.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. It's good to finally see you. Last time,
right? Last time it was just audio. Yeah. You mentioned in your introduction that since 2011, you've been on a path of learning about pure or aesthetic autism. Explain what you mean by that and what launched you on this path.
Oh, absolutely. In 2011, I was introduced. Actually, I was contacted by a couple of people. Their name is Gail and Lyrica, and they're the authors of the book Autism. That's AWE, Tism, a hidden key to our spirituality. And Gail and Lyrica had reached out to me, and they asked me to help them put together a book trailer. And at that time, I had just been laid off, so I had the time. So I said, send me the book. So I got their book, I read it, and one of the things that hit me was their information was absolutely out of this world, but it resonated as truth. And I noticed that nobody knew about this stuff, or very few people were writing about it. And so they eventually asked me to do help them bring their book into the world. And by doing that, I was introduced to a total of 3 nonverbal, non-speaking autistics and their families. And, and they welcomed me into their world, and they welcomed me into a world very few people see. And ever since I was a very little girl, a small girl, some energy, some things just resonate as truth with me. And then other things don't resonate as truth with me. And what was ringing true was that their story really hadn't been told. And so they asked me to tell their story. And initially I said no. And eventually I said yes, but I agreed to do it in visionary fiction because some of their truths really are out of this world. And, I was just thinking if these people, Gail and Lyrica, as well as other very talented people are starting to move their work into the world, and if it's not being accepted, I wanted to try to do it in a safer way, which was in visionary fiction. And that was the book I released when we spoke in 2020, the end of 2020. And that's The Unsuspected Heroes. And very shortly after that, I decided that the truth, I guess the nonfiction version of some of the information on the new earth, as well as the autistics, needs to come to light. And that is the book I just released, which is Destination New Earth.
Yeah, I mean, your stuff, you're doing something unique. I mean, I don't know of anybody else doing this.
You know, there have been some really talented people back in, I think it was the 90s. Christy Jordy and Ariana Roca, they did a book, very great book. Then Galen Lerka's book. And then there are other people, Susie Miller. There are people that are writing about this stuff, but it's like the world isn't hearing it.
Yeah.
And you're right. This, you talk about pure autism. Pure autism, the way I look at it, the autists, they're a unique species on their own. They are experiencing life on this planet entirely differently than we are experiencing it. The autists, we're spiritual beings having a physical experience. And we're trying to embody our spiritual essence in our physicality. And that is essentially part of the ascension process. But the autists, these pure autists, they are spiritual beings having a spiritual experience.
Are they nonverbal?
Well, there are some that are nonverbal. The ones that I'm talking about now, let's say the ethereal autists.
Yeah.
They are nonverbal for the most part, not all, but for the most part.
How do you communicate with them then?
Well, I should say that for the two books are a little different. Mm-hmm. For this most recent book, we worked with one autistic. His name is Daniel, and Daniel is nonverbal, and he communicates in different ways. He does communicate through facilitated communication, which is a supported typing method, mm-hmm. where the autistic, because what I was saying is that they are lightly tied to the physicality that, they present with difficulty in form. They present with difficulty communicating, and they can lunge. So it's hard for them to just type. So they have a facilitator in this process, which they don't help them point at things. They provide resistance so that they're able to more effectively pinpoint on a letter board. So that's how Daniel communicates first. What
do you mean? Is it an actual keyboard?
It is a keyboard.
Yes.
It is a keyboard. It can be a keyboard. It can be electronic, and it doesn't have to be electronic. But what happens is they might need assistance so that their pointing is very defined. So, and it's a slow process. It's a very slow process. So that's one way he communicates. He also communicates through telepathy and psychic communication. And for this book, he also communicates through a channel, so that if we're in a channeling session, the channel can bring him in, and he can speak through the channel.
Huh. Well, because you have a couple of channels that you use.
Well, for the last book, there's one channel, okay, and her name is Shauna Kalicki. And she channels the masters, archangels, and the autistics. And she channels this Syrian. And Syrian is a 16th dimensional collective speaking through one voice. And Another woman involved in this last book, her name is Connie, and Connie is the mother of Daniel. Connie is, she's a very powerful intuitive. And yeah, she provided this excellent story in Destination New Earth. And that...
Up the three ice cone.
That was
three ice cream cone.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you tell us about
Tell
that?
us that story. That's a great one.
Well, Connie, so Connie was at work and she was talking to a coworker, and the coworker, from what I remember, the coworker brought up about the law of attraction, was saying, it's hogwash and, don't believe it, and poo-pooing the idea. And Connie was starting to go along with it, and she essentially had a channeling experience where something came in her and these words just flowed through her about the law of attraction, the power of belief, the power of, imagination. And she gave her coworker instructions. She said, I want you to go home and I want you to imagine you're getting 3 ice creams and ice cream cones. And, I don't want you to imagine about the calories. I don't want you to think about the cost. You're just getting 3 ice cream cones. Just believe it, taste it. She does the law of attraction exercise. And so her coworker goes home. She does the exercise. And when her husband comes home that evening, he has this box. It was a box that contained supposedly 4 ice cream cones at the time. But one of them was missing. So she had 3 ice cream cones from her husband. And there was a story about that. But the coworker had a great response. The coworker just thought, my God, if it's this easy, why don't I do something a little more substantial? The husband and wife had, I guess they had a debt, about $2,200. Someone owed them. And they had given up on the debt because it had been years since they had received it. And they had moved since that time. So she went through the process of imagining receiving it. And lo and behold, within a short period of time, the doorbell rings. It's this person with a check for pretty much the amount that they were owed. So the next day she shares this with Connie, and Connie goes home and she goes, hey, what's this all about? Because she goes to her son, Daniel, and she takes the board. She says, what's this all about? Because this is, this is really, this is amazing, that this happened with her coworker. And he pretty much types out, it's not for just the coworker. And he gives her a date. And he says, it was like over a decade, right? It was like 1999. Go to this month and this year and read your diary. So Connie goes to retrieve the diary, kind of tickled that her son even remembered it and knows that she has a diary, actually. So she goes to that month and she reads it, and she reads about how she is in a loveless relationship, really needs to break up, but she needs about $4,000 in order to do that. And so she's really sad that she's brought to this chapter, but she keeps reading. And in the next month, she reads how the social services called and they had audited her case. And they realized that they owed her $4,100. So the next month, she had $4,100. And Son pretty much just said it's a power of belief. It's everyone is creators. We get to create our reality. And so that was a great story.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So, Alex, have you met Daniel in person?
I have.
Okay.
I have. I've met all 3 autists.
Okay.
Person. Yeah.
How old is he? Can you describe him a little bit?
Absolutely. He is he's in his late 20s.
Mm-hmm.
He's got great energy. He is thin. He is very energetic. The very first time I met him was actually, I was at a ceremony with the 3 autists, and I didn't know him, and I had just met his parents, and we were doing a spiritual ceremony in a medicine wheel, and we were in Sedona, and I didn't know him, and I could see him walking around, and I was there to support Gail and Lyrica. And so after my portion of the ceremony was done, everybody was in the circle. I came out of the circle and I sat on a big boulder, and there were all these boulders that surrounded this medicine wheel. And I just sat there, and he had been walking by himself while the parents were in ceremony. And he came over and he sat next to me on this one big boulder. And there were big boulders all over the place, but he just sat there next to me, obviously quiet, because I don't know what he's doing, but it was a gift.
Huh.
Oh.
Synchronicities have been a big part of your life and started with the rose. Tell us about that. I like the crazy synchronicity too about the 3 ice cones. Obviously, that's great.
Yeah, the ice.
Tell us about the rose.
Okay, not as probably
not as dramatic, but
yes. But yeah, synchronicities have always been big in my life, and I even wrote a book about it, which is Life Signs. And the very first time synchronicities came into my life was when I was in the mid-20s. I was in my mid-20s, and at the time I had no idea what they meant. But it was probably some type of an awakening where I was able to witness that the universe was talking to me, but I didn't know what it meant. And
that's always the challenge.
I know, really. Well, this is a great example that I didn't know what it meant until years later, because I've mentioned, one of the things I mention a lot is I've always been this truth seeker since I was young, and when things didn't resonate with me, I always wanted to go out and find the truth. And so when I was doing research for one of my books, I was researching the Magdalens. The Magdalens are a group of Essenes that included Mary Magdalene, Yeshua, Jesus, Mother Mary, Anna, Joachim, Bartholomew. I mean, there's a bunch of men and women in the Magdalens, as obviously including Mary Magdalene. And so as I was doing this research, it hit me that the rose and the lily are symbols of the Magdalens and Mary Magdalene. And I was reminded that when I take a look at my family lineage, my maternal grandmother, her name was Lilia Lafleur. And I always love that name, Lily the Flower.
The flower, yeah.
Yeah. And then I thought, well, what about my paternal grandmother? Her name was Antoinette de Rozier. And de Rozier means from the rose bush. So, it just hit me. Well, why not? From the beginning, I thought I was to look for the truth in the Magdalene line. And that's kind of what I've done throughout most of my books, quite a few books.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah, in your book, Destination New Earth, Daniel plays a major role, it seems, and he provides a lot of interesting information. Where does his wisdom come from? That's a big question.
Okay,
that's big.
It is a big question, and in one point of the book, it pins, in a way, Mother Mary up against Daniel, and it does and it doesn't. But in my human mind, I've always, I was raised Catholic, so I have this great fondness for Mother Mary. And so where does Daniel hang his hat? Daniel has the ability, there's this one point in which there's access to all dimensions. And that's where Daniel is. That's where he can go in all dimensions. And so, because I was asking, well, why should it was a human question, why should I take your information over Mother Mary's? Because she's saying this and you're saying that. And, he explained that Mother Mary, even in her 12th dimensional form, which is very high, is still human. And she has access to so many dimensions where he has access to all dimensions. So
explain how these dimensions are defined. I mean, you talk about the 16th or the 12th, or what's that mean?
Okay, so there, if you can say, we can get into physics, where you can say, okay, one dimension is a point,
right?
The line, and we can go up and down that. I get lost between time and the fifth dimension. But if you take a look at it's a frequency, everything has a frequency, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's got a resonance and a vibration. What did Einstein say? Energy, frequency, vibration. So what is the 16th dimension? It is a frequency. It's a vibration. And as we shift our own frequency and vibration, we have the experience of those energies, emotions. Every energy, every emotion, every feeling is associated with a certain frequency. So, you asked me what it is, I'd say it's a frequency, it's a vibration.
But how, for instance, so how does the 16th frequency differ from the 12th? What?
My human brain will say it's higher, okay? Because it's a higher
number.
It's a higher number. But once you get past the Earth in 3D, there is not really a higher and there's no lower.
Mm-hmm.
There just is. The 16th dimension is, I think we had this conversation.
I think so. I vaguely remember that. Yeah.
Yes, last time.
It's such a curious concept of not the concept of energies, that kind of thing, but where we number things.
Right.
The important number, though, is the fifth dimension, isn't it? I mean, isn't that what the book is about? New Earth, isn't the new Earth related to the fifth dimension?
It is the new Earth. Yes, we are currently going through a planetary shift in consciousness from our
about time.
What's that?
It's about time.
Yeah, well,
it's beyond time.
Yeah, it's beyond time.
Yes. It's all happening. Everything happens at the same time, right? Yeah. So we're going through this shift from a very dense, egoic state of the third dimension to a lighter vibration of the fifth dimension. And when you look at it that way, the fifth dimension is just another experience for us because, we as human beings are here to experience life. That's why we're here, is to experience. So the fifth dimension, yes, it is higher, it is lighter, it's a place of unconditional love, acceptance, peace, and that is where we are heading. Now, if you ask me what's the difference between the fifth dimension and the new Earth, it gets back to that vibration portion. Mm-hmm. The new Earth it's an experience of being in the fifth dimension. It is the experience of being in sync with the living Gaia. And what I mean by that is Mother Earth. Mother Earth is going through this evolutionary process of ascension. Okay, so she essentially takes all of the earth, the plants, the elements, the rocks, the animals, and a portion of humanity with her to this new earth. So the new earth is that vibration of being one with all of nature, of the living earth. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. And so that's really the blueprint for the new earth that Daniel talks about, right?
The blueprint, it's actually, a few things came out in Destination New Earth. The first thing is that the ascension is not a done deal. It is a probability, but humanity has work to do, and that work is this awakening. It's this great awakening.
But first we have to have chaos, apparently.
Well, everything is happening to awaken humanity. And yeah, the chaos is part of it. Okay. But getting back to the question about what the new earth, this ascension, this blueprint that Daniel talks about, is that each person has a role in this, because the ascension is not going to happen on this massive awakening. Is the way it's going to happen is going to be on an individual basis until there is what we call a critical mass. And people will, at that point, there will be a greater awakening. But the blueprint is that each person has a role in this shift. And each person, they have their own blueprint. And when they live their truth and they live their authentic self, they awaken. They become a much larger part of this planetary shift in consciousness. Because what happens is, when one person awakens, they get to go out there and awaken others. Because when we awaken, we exhibit light, right? When we awaken and we claim our sovereignty, we inspire others to do the same. So that's what has to happen between now and this great awakening.
Any date given? Any date given for the awakening?
Well, the only thing we have to worry about is ourselves. And each of us, because we need to awaken. And that great awakening will not occur until that critical mass basically triggers this 100th monkey event, where people will massively waken up.
And when that happens, there's a myth or a religious belief that like 144,000 people will rise up, disappear. Daniel doesn't say that, though. He says that once you're in the new earth, you're still here with everybody else. Could you explain that and how that works? How can we be here and be in the new earth at the same time? And who gets to go and who gets to stay?
Boy, I think you have to read the whole book to get that answer. And I have to say that when I read the book, every time I read the book, I get something new.
Yeah.
There is this thing called, and we talk about the 144,000, and that goes back to the Bible, where yes, there are these people. There's only 144,000 people here that are here to be part of this big awakening. And Daniel,
but there was a lot fewer people in the world than when that was written, right?
You mean the Bible?
There were a lot of fewer people in the world, right? Exactly. And Daniel says there are millions of people here for this awakening. There are millions of light workers, whatever you want to call them, light workers, the 144,000, the star seeds. It doesn't matter. Everyone is here for this shift in consciousness. But that's what it is. It's this shift. It's a shift from the 3D to the 5D. Some people are going to do it and other people aren't. And there's no judgment in whether you do it or you don't do it. It's people gravitate to what they like, right? They who they like. They gravitate to like energies. Some people will stay, and that will be fine. And other people are going to be more drawn to the fifth dimensional consciousnesses of love and light and tolerance and acceptance and forgiveness, while others won't. And so we're both going to have our own realities. And there are a lot of questions in the book about, well, how is that going to be that we're going to have the fifth dimension and the third dimension same realm? Because
Well, it sounds like the age of Aquarius.
oh,
know?
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, if you put it into astrological terms, because
Yeah.
that's what it's about.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. It is the age of Aquarius, and so yes, we're going to have different. I know in my life, and perhaps in your life, you've seen friends come and go from your life, and you've seen new friends come into your life, and you're drawn to those who resonate with
Right.
whatever path you're on. But
That's
yeah.
how you're drawn. That's how I'm drawn to books too. Sometimes I'll just go to Barnes and Noble and look and see, and if something leaps out at me, I think, okay, this I buy.
But I know what you're saying, though, because like when Trish and I left our jobs and went as freelance writers, some people thought we were kind of nuts. You're just giving up everything you have, and now you're just out there and with no regular income, and or they kind of even make a little bit of fun of you trying to do that. Then you kind of drift away from those people who are in a different in a sense in a different reality.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys are living your truth, your authentic selves.
We've
And
been
you're
really fortunate.
As crazy as
Yeah.
it is.
As crazy as it is, yeah.
yeah, and you're inspiring so many other people by talking about your truth, right?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. I've never thought of it quite in that sense that, okay, never mind. I don't even know where that thought was going.
But there, it's such a big picture, though. I mean, we've had an interest in this reality or this area for a long time, but we've never thought about autists and
No,
like
yeah, that was
autist collective. What is an autist collective, for instance?
Well, there is this thing called the Autistic Collective or Autist Collective. And these are, the way I would describe it, they are the silent heroes that are ushering in the new earth. And they're doing it in such a way that they can have humanity witness the new earth and experience it. And so that humanity can awaken to the truth about who they are, because that's what we need right now, is for people to awaken. So that it's a network, and they're all over the planet, and they work with other autistics.
And could they communicate telepathically among themselves?
They can communicate telepathically, absolutely, among themselves. They can communicate with other worlds, other planets. They can communicate with other aliens. They can communicate. I say other because we're all aliens, right? They communicate. They see time and space. They see other dimensions. They communicate with the masters, the ascended masters. They communicate with angels, galactic beings. They communicate with other autistics. Yes.
Huh.
Most people, I think, who have had any dealings with autists probably think that these people are not all here. And really, that's the truth, right? I mean, they're not all here.
They aren't here at all. I mean,
physically.
The true pure autists, I was mentioning that they are lightly tethered to their physicality.
Yeah.
Their frequency is so high, they can't pull it into the physicality. I was talking about, we're spiritual beings having a physical experience. We're trying to embody our essence in our bodies, but they can't do that because it would fry out their circuits.
Huh.
So they remain they're having an entirely different experience. So how it manifests is communication issues. They're awkward. They're different. So what happens? Humanity, when humanity sees things that they don't know what it is. They can't explain it. They put things in a box. And for the autistics, that box has been autism. They call them autists.
Yeah. And Daniel can speak some very high truths and values and spiritual beliefs that he's communicating. But yet, in the physical world, he might just walk out into traffic if he's not careful, if somebody's not right there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is probably one of the biggest challenges for the caretakers, the parents of these beings, because they can absolutely just walk out in traffic. And you mentioned that Connie went through a situation where she had to acquire a posy belt so that when they're in a situation where they're near traffic, if he bolts because he's having this experience doing something else, if his physical body bolts, she needs to be able to keep him safe. So can you imagine what it's like to take care of an autistic?
Must be, wow. Well, what happens when she's gone?
What happens when she's gone? Well,
Yeah, who?
That's something I would have to, I don't know.
I was just curious. I mean, it's because no parent lives forever. And
No parent, that family, obviously, Connie, and her husband they take good care of Daniel. And, between the two, it takes the two of them.
Yeah. We just had an experience about 6 weeks ago with an autist child when our daughter was closing on her house, and we were with the closing agent. We were with her in this office. It was after hours. There's no one else in the office except the closing agent and two of his kids. And one of them was an autist. And while we're signing all these papers, Megan is signing all these papers, big stack of papers, the kid literally destroys the office. I mean, everything was strewn everywhere, and I tried talking with him, but he would never look me in the eye, so it's an interesting, it must be a very unusual experience being the parent and dealing with the autist.
But this guy was great. He was great with his son.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
He was very patient. Okay, let's pick up everything,
I think the parents of autists they're angels,
Yeah.
They were
be.
The autists selected their parents very carefully. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, where do we go from here, Rob? Okay.
Okay. What about the trickster? You one of the channel experience that.
Oh yeah, the trickster. That was.
I don't know if it was Daniel that who was channeling, but somebody else came in with, and it turned out to be a trickster experience. Can you go into that?
Sure. Okay. So the channel that we use is Shauna. Okay. And Daniel isn't the channel. Daniel might speak through the channel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In this situation, this was a weird situation. It was pretty early on into the project, and we were doing this channeling, and I was asking Shauna the questions. And so what happens is when we do a channeling, whoever comes in usually announces who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And gives a message, and then we get into it. And so, this channeling was entirely different, and Shauna just started talking, and the way she was responding, her mannerisms were different, her language was different, and when she speaks for Daniel, she has certain mannerisms that they weren't there. And so I said, who's this? And the entity proceeded to explain that it was an angelic aspect of Daniel, and gave me the name, and Shauna described him with great detail. And, so we got through the channeling, and this aspect did the whole channeling, and the information was quite fascinating. But I sent the audio to Connie, and that's how we would do it. I'd take the audio and I'd send it to Connie, because she would transcribe it. So what happened is, the next morning it just didn't feel right, and so I texted Connie and I said, "Hey, did an angelic aspect of Daniel come into the channeling yesterday?" And so she went to Daniel and she asked, and he said, "No, it was a trickster. Do not listen to the channeling."
Huh.
And so you ask why that happened. I think it was the experience. It was the experience for me to see the difference in the energy. I didn't know who that was.
Even the gestures you said changed.
Yeah, the manner. It was totally. Mother Mary is usually one way. Her language is different. Syrian is totally different. Daniel is a little more animated. But this was entirely different. Now, Shauna had her own experience and got her own lessons from it. But I think the biggest lesson for this was we realized how important Daniel was to bringing this information from the book. Because, when you channel, even though they say, yeah, we're here for love and light.
But I'm a trickster.
Yeah, you just don't know. So here we are, and we can ask. Daniel would, grade each of the responses, from the questions. So we had this accuracy check as we would go through the.
Has that happened again?
No, we only had one
interesting.
issue with and that was kind of it was a little upsetting experience.
I mean, the trickster is such an interesting archetype too.
Yeah.
It appears throughout literature, movies. And so now we know it appears in channeling. Also, that's
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So back to the New Earth concept. You write that the New Earth isn't something that's going to happen in the future. It's already happening now. And I wonder if you can relate to this bit of Buddhist wisdom. Before I ascended or became enlightened, I chopped wood and carried water. After I ascended, I chopped wood and carried water. Does that make any sense to you?
Oh, absolutely. I think how I would relate to that would be the more I learn about this thing called enlightenment and ascension in the New Earth, the more I learn about it, the more I realize how little I know. And that's really humbling, Yeah.
You say that there's a spiritual war going on, with one side trying to help humanity raising consciousness and the other side trying to prevent humanity from reaching a critical mass, creating this shift of awareness. Can you talk a bit about that? Who's on whose side, or is there any way of defining it?
It sounds a lot like the good aliens and the bad aliens. It seems like all of these groups have these opposing forces.
Yeah, there is a game going on, and the game is essentially to see if we're going to awaken to the truth about who we are, and that's the game. And there are good players. You say good and bad.
Yeah.
I say light and dark because they're polarities. And anytime we take a polarity and we put judgment on it, that's a duality. And, so there are light and dark players in all type of beings, I should say. You talk about aliens or human. Who's on which team? There are light and dark players for aliens. There are light and dark players for humans.
Mm-hmm.
There are also, you know, who else is in the game? There are the angels. They are the masters. I mean, all entities are part of this game. And I can't really say that, these aliens, reptilians,
Yeah.
the bad
Guys. Yeah.
I can't say that because
Right.
within any species, there are light players and there are dark players. And
everybody's playing their own role, right? I mean,
everyone's
that they have
playing-
decided upon at
Yes.
some point. Yeah.
That's exactly it. And the biggest thing is we can't go to judgment because those people that are playing roles that perhaps we feel are, we might say they're bad or they're evil. That's our humanity. Placing judgment on it. So, so that's one of those things that Daniel cautioned about throughout the entire book is don't go to judgment, be neutral. The judgment, by being non-judgmental, you neutralize the energy. And that's what we need to do, is neutralize the energy.
Do you know if
How do we
Daniel...
do that with Putin?
Yeah.
Do you know if good and bad players?
Yeah. Do you know if Daniel reads books or listens to podcasts? Is he involved in the world in that sense?
I know that he does not read books. He will have books read to him.
Okay.
But he just knows. I mean, he knows everything.
Yeah.
Because I have to say, when I first met Connie and Daniel and her husband, we had an exchange. They gifted me with some sacred oil, and so I turned around and I sent Connie one book and her husband a different book. And the book I sent to Connie was A Matter of Degrees, which is, some people go, it's conspiracy about the aliens and so on and so forth. But anyway, so Connie came home and she took the book and she put it on her shelf. Her husband read Life Signs and was very gracious. Sent me a note about life signs. But Connie put the other book away, and so many months goes by, and Daniel says to his mother she has to read Alex's code book. I said, what code book? It was Degrees.
Wow.
And he knew what it was about, but he had never read it. He knows everything.
And also you said if he can type, then he's literate, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
He's brilliant.
Uh-huh.
Brilliant. And autists are.
Mm-hmm.
Towards the end of your book, you talk about the Anasazis and the Mayan civilizations. Why do you go into some of these
experiments?
These ancient cultures. How does that fit with your? Yeah, how does that fit into your book?
Well, it was always an interest of me. I've always been really drawn to learn about the ancient cultures, the ancient those cultures that they say they disappeared, like the and the Mayan cultures. And so I've been to different cultures around the world, and I had been reading Dolores Canyon's, I think it was The Convoluted Universe, might have been 4. And in that, she made a statement that during these cultures, they were practicing mass ascensions. And how that would work is that a high-level soul, and when I mean high level, I'm talking about
evolved.
Well, more than evolved, it's kind of like, okay, so you have this expansion, right? Here's source consciousness, and then you have here's where we are, okay? And we're all expressions of source consciousness. We're fractals, we're stepped down versions. And what Dolores Canyon's work was suggesting is that there was a high-level soul, one of the first step downs, one soul that would come in and have multiple expressions of all these people and these cultures. And they would practice these mass ascensions. And so I was just curious about it. So I brought it into the channeling and I asked Daniel, is this true? And he agreed that there was this high soul. Dolores was suggesting that there was a high-level soul. That high-level soul has embodied and is walking the planet. And so I asked Daniel about that. And he said, he goes, the consciousness never left. And he said...
You mean of those cultures? Or of that soul?
Of that soul never left. The bodies, the physical bodies, when we die, it goes to the earth. Okay? And the spark of life, that connection to our soul, will leave and it returns to the soul. But what Daniel is saying is the consciousness doesn't leave. And he wanted me to think about that as another form of reincarnation, which is another extension of the soul.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting.
Stays.
I was thinking of this connection with your work here with the autists and the Anasazi and Mayan civilizations in a little different way, because I see that the tribal shamans might have been autists themselves, because they were not happy campers typically, but they were very highly evolved in a sense as healers, spiritual leaders of the tribe.
That's absolutely an interesting way of looking at it. And autists have been here since Lemuria, so they've that it's very possible that they were
okay. So what's coming up next for you?
What's coming up next for me?
A loaded question. I mean, do you have another book in the works? Are you going to continue this work with the autists?
Well, I have another book. It was the book 2 of the Unsuspected. I started this work with the Unsuspected Heroes,
right,
which is that visionary tale, and it introduces the work of the autists in a safer way. It also introduces some high-level spiritual metaphysical concepts. And so I had that book 2, but book 1 really needs to take off before I can
do book 2.
Yeah. That's a good question. I am not sure. We had talked about doing other books, but right now we need to see where this book, which has just been launched, goes.
Yeah. Do you feel like you're guided towards something new when you do start something? I mean, do you feel that there's like synchronicities that show you the way, or you gut feeling, or what is it?
Oh, absolutely. Gut synchronicities always show me the way. And I always have, I don't know, half dozen books in my head, I guess. And I start things. There's a book that I had started years ago when I've met the autists that I've kind of moved away from because of the autist work. And every once in a while that book calls to me, so I might return to that. I may do another book with autists. And because I really feel very passionate about this topic. I think that humanity just doesn't get it.
Not yet.
They don't get it.
We're trying.
Well, they're not talking about it. It's like, I'm not the first person you mentioned. I'm the only one that's saying this. I'm not the first one
No, I knew you weren't the first one, but you're the current
I am the
voice.
current one.
You know.
How did you put this book together since there are so many people involved?
That's a great question. Well, first, the concept was picked by Daniel, Connie, and myself. Shauna didn't have anything to do with it because Shauna was going to be used as the foundation piece of the work, right? So Shauna didn't know, and so each person had their own roles. Connie, so I would interview the channel, okay? And the channel would bring in Shauna, and Shauna would bring in people, beings, and I would ask the questions Connie and I put together, and then Connie would transcribe the sessions. She'd take the transcriptions and she'd go to Daniel and she would sit with him and say, here's the question and here's the answer. What's the accuracy? And each of them would get graded. And that Daniel sometimes would, grade it, and then he would go into a dialogue through facilitated communication and give more information about it. And so we would, after everything was done, the questions were asked, and we had all the channelings, and I had hundreds of pages of transcripts. I went in and I took a look at only the ones that were graded high. Mm-hmm. And then I fleshed those out to bring more clarity to them. And then I was intuitively guided to just take all these things and put them in the different sections of the book. And then
plus you have a full-time job. How do you do this with a full-time job? You don't sleep much.
That's exactly it. I don't sleep much. I don't.
What about fiction writing?
That's what her first, the Unsuspected Heroes.
Yeah.
The Unsuspected Heroes. I have 3 other novels that are out there. I like writing fiction, but sometimes it's, you get inspired by something and you just, I want to tell truths. Mm-hmm. When I look at all my work, from the very first book novel to this work, it's always about revealing truth to help heal the planet.
Yeah.
Are you a Sagittarian?
I sure am. Well, actually, no. I'm that 13th one. What is it?
Oh, the 13th sign?
Ophusius? Is that it?
Yeah, or what? I don't know. I haven't even really looked into that because I only work with 12 signs. It's too complicated otherwise. But what's your birthday?
It's the 30th of November.
Okay, so you get early Sag. I'll tell you how I knew, because you talk about wanting to get to the truth. That's the archetypal truth about Sages. They're always looking, what's the absolute bottom line? What's the truth?
And that's interesting because Connie, as well as Shauna and I, we're all Sages.
Oh, wow. And what's Daniel?
Daniel is October.
Libra?
Is that
October what? Late October?
It's mid.
Then he's probably a Libra.
Okay.
Mid.
Yeah.
Find out. I'm curious.
Yeah, I am. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because all 3 of us, the three female, the triple goddesses. That's what the triple goddesses are the Ophusius also. We're all later.
Right, that later.
Yeah.
Interesting. Fascinating. Oh, wow. There's a lot of material here.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, this has been great, Alex. And I love doing this with Zoom instead of Skype.
Oh, yes. Well,
it's just
I'm so happy that we haven't had any technical issues.
Yeah.
No.
The
tricksters are absent today.
Right. Yeah.
Called in the protection, right?
Yeah, right. And